Hare Krishna, welcome to this episode of Bhagavad-gītā. Today we will be studying the second verse of the 10th chapter. The title of this lecture is The Enigmatic Lord Krishna, or the Mysterious Lord Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So today we'll be studying this very important verse, chapter 10, text 2. न मे विदुः sura-gaṇāḥ prabhavaṁ न maharṣayaḥ aham ādir hi devānāṁ maharṣīṇāṁ ca sarvaśaḥ. Na, never, may, my, viduḥ, no, sura-gaṇāḥ, the demigods, prabhavaṁ, origin, opulences, na, never, maharṣayaḥ, great sages, aham, I am, ādir, the origin, he, certainly, devānāṁ, of the demigods, maharṣīṇāṁ, of the great sages, cha, also, sarvaśaḥ, in all respects. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: Neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. So I request you a small favor, if you can kindly share this class on social media, on your WhatsApp, wherever you can, so that others can also join in the Krishna Katha for everyone's purification. Right? Thank you very much. So, neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences, for in every respect I am the source of the demigods and sages. Purport: As stated in the Brahma Samhita, Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord. No one is greater than him. He is the cause of all causes. Here it is also stated by the Lord personally that he is the cause of all the demigods and sages. Even the demigods and great sages cannot understand Krishna. They can understand neither his name nor his personality. So, what is the position of the so called scholars of this tiny planet? No one can understand why this supreme God comes to earth as an ordinary human being and executes such wonderful, uncommon activities. One should know then that scholarship is not the qualification necessary to understand Krishna. Even the demigods and the great sages have tried to understand Krishna by their mental speculation, and they have failed to do so. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, it is clearly said that even the great demigods are not able to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They can speculate to the limits of their imperfect senses and can reach the conclusion of impersonalism, of something opposite to what is manifested by the three qualities of material nature, or they can imagine something by mental speculation, but it is not possible to understand Krishna by such foolish speculation. Here, the Lord indirectly says that if anyone wants to know the absolute truth, here I am present as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am the Supreme, he's saying. One should know this. Although one cannot understand the inconceivable Lord who is personally present, he nonetheless exists. We can actually understand Krishna, who is eternal, full of bliss and knowledge, simply by studying his words in Bhagavad-gītā and Srimad Bhagavatam. The conception of God as some ruling power or as the impersonal Brahman can be reached by persons who are in the inferior energy of the Lord. But the personality of Godhead cannot be conceived unless one is in the transcendental position. Because most men cannot understand Krishna in his actual situation, out of his causeless mercy, he descends to show favor to such speculators. Yet, despite the Supreme Lord's uncommon activities, these speculators, due to contamination in the material energy, still think that the impersonal Brahman is the Supreme. Only the devotees who are fully surrendered unto the Supreme Lord can understand, by the grace of the Supreme Personality, that He is Krishna. The devotees of the Lord do not bother about the impersonal Brahman conception of God. Their faith and devotion bring them to surrender immediately unto the Supreme Lord. And out of the causeless mercy of Krishna, they can understand Krishna. No one else can understand him. So even great sages agree. What is Atma? What is the Supreme? It is He whom we have to worship. So, neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages agree. Sages know my origin. Okay, so in the previous chapter, Krishna ends on the note that everyone can come to him, even the lowborn, um, women, Vaishyas, Shudras, and Antyajas, and everyone. Um, then he says, what to speak of the Brahmanas, they are more qualified. But now he says, just about three verses later, that what to speak of Brahmanas, even the great yogis, munis, rishis, and devatas, they cannot also understand me. What to speak of paltry human beings? Human beings are nothing compared to the great sages and demigods of the higher planets, and even they cannot understand. Well, we don't stand a chance. So, kind of contradictory, isn't it? Well, it is not so because in this verse he says, the previous verse, because Arjuna, you are my dear friend, for your benefit I shall speak to you this confidential knowledge. Pakshami hitakamyaya shrunu me paramam vachaha. You see, just hear my very confidential instruction. So, by when Krishna explains and when we listen to him, we can understand. If we accept in toto the revealed knowledge of Krishna, the knowledge revealed by Krishna, then we can understand. Otherwise, we can speculate with the strength of our mind, not just our mind, even with the strength of the mind of the great sages and devatas, who are extremely more capable than we are. Even with such intelligence, what to speak, even Lord Brahma himself, the creator of the universe, he himself is bewildered. He says, see, जानन्त एव जानन्तु किं बहूक्त्या न मे प्रभो मनसो वपुषो वाचो वैभवं तव गोचरः. There are people who say, I know everything about Krishna. Let them think that way. As far as I am concerned, I do not wish to speak very much about this matter. O my Lord, let me say this much. As far as your opulences are concerned, they are all beyond the reach of my mind, body, and words. So it's not just the Lord Himself, but His opulences even are way beyond the reach of Brahma's mind, body, and words. So just imagine what other devatas or rishis, they cannot even come close to the stature of Lord Brahma. And Brahma himself is saying like this. So we don't stand a chance at all, right? So it is a privilege that we know something about Krishna actually. We do know something about Krishna, right? Well, out of humility, we may say we don't know anything, but we know because the pure devotee of Krishna has revealed to us. On his strength, we know something. On our own strength, we will not know, we cannot know. There's no way we can know about Krishna. But by the mercy of Krishna and his pure devotee, Guru Krishna Prasada Pai Bhakti Lata Bij, this is a pure manifestation of prasad. That means mercy, favor. This is the favor of the Guru and Krishna that we are able to know about Krishna. So we should take it, we should not take it for granted that, I already know, and we cannot be slack in our Krishna consciousness. We should honor the privilege that has been awarded to us out of causeless mercy. We did not deserve the privilege. We should never consider ourselves deserving of the privilege that we are somehow aware, even to a little bit extent, about Krishna. Um, because Krishna can withdraw that privilege as well, even after we know him. Um, he has done it once, he can do it again. Because we were there in the spiritual world and we knew his opulences, and now we forgot. So he can do it again. So we should never take it for granted that you know that we are having some access to the knowledge of Krishna. We have to take it very seriously. Now name viduḥ sura-gaṇāḥ prabhavaṁ na maharṣayaḥ aham ādir devānāṁ maharṣīṇāṁ cha sarvaśaḥ. Now this points to this another verse in Bhagavad-gītā which says, मनुष्याणां सहस्रेषु कश्चित् यतति सिद्धये यततामपि सिद्धानां कश्चिन् मां वेत्ति तत्त्वतः. So siddhanam means perfected beings. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. And in other words, in a different way it is said here, मुक्तानामपि सिद्धानां नारायणपरायणः सुदुर्लभः प्रशान्तात्मा कोटिष्वपि महामुने. Mahamune means the great sages. Now, O great sage, among many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation, one may be a devotee of Lord Narayana or Krishna. Such devotees who are fully peaceful are extremely rare. Uh, Others are not peaceful. Prashantatma. Prashantatma means very, very peaceful. But this word cannot be applied to people who are not devotees. Let's see. Okay. 19.149. कृष्ण भक्त निष्काम अतएव शांत भुक्ति मुक्ति सिद्धि कामी सकलि अशांत. Because the devotee of Lord Krishna is desireless, he is peaceful. Fruitive workers desire material enjoyment, jnanis desire liberation, and yogis desire material opulence in the form of mystic powers. Therefore, they are all lusty and cannot be peaceful. Hmm. Just a second. Because the devotee of Lord Krishna is desireless, he is peaceful. Fruitive workers. So, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama. Nishkama. So, the one who is Kama Kami means who wants to um, fulfill his material desires, he cannot be peaceful. And you may say Mahamunis, they are, not into sense gratification. Hmm. But sense gratification happens at many levels. The hedonism of, gross sense gratification is one thing only. But there is subtle sense gratification. The jnanis, they desire liberation. Now, liberation is a good thing to desire, right? No. Because there is also self interest, and moreover, such liberation is sought independent of the surrender to the Lord. Such liberation is actually a grand program for sense gratification because they want to merge with the Supreme, they want to become one with the Supreme. So basically, they want to become the Supreme. It's a grand sense gratification program. So it is masked as if it is rejecting sense gratification, but actually it is much more dangerous than ordinary sense gratification. Yogis desire material opulence in the form of mystic powers. Mystic powers are actually opulences. They're way more greater opulence than just wealth, um, you know, um, ordinary women and everything. What is that? Dhana, Jana Sundari, wealth, following, and women. Mystic powers are higher than this, and even when they get those mystic powers, they can easily fall for the trap of the Dhana, Jana, and Sundari. And even if they kind of temporarily are above that or have, you know, distanced themselves from that, but even the um, desire to have some mystic powers is itself a distraction. It's a huge sense gratification, because what are you going to do with that mystic? Why do you want them? A pure devotee is awarded all the yogic perfections before he gets to pure devotional service. He's awarded, but he's not, when he's not attracted to any of them, then he's awarded the pure devotional service. So he's tested first of all. He's given all these lucrative, candies, as you say, dog biscuits or something like that. Whether he wants to go for it or not. He is shown the heavenly opulence. He's shown mystic powers. He's shown all these things. Only when he is completely disinterested in any of them, then he is awarded pure devotional service. So, um, so those who Atmendriya pritivancha taranam kam, Krishnendriya pritivancha dhare premnam. So kama and prema, lust and love. The difference is, lust is to the desire to gratify one's own senses, and love means the desire to satisfy Krishna's senses. So only a devotee wants to satisfy Krishna's senses and is not interested in anything. If he is given mystic powers, he will use them for Krishna's service. If he is given liberation, he will use it for Krishna's service. If he is given material opulence, he uses it for Krishna's service. So he does not want them. He can do Krishna's service because just now Krishna has said in the previous chapter that anyone can come to me, right? And before that, just a few verses before that, he said, Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhakti pahritam ashnami prayatatmanah. He accepts our service, even though we may be, completely poor or completely unqualified. I mean, we cannot be unqualified for Krishna's service. The only qualification is the desire to serve. If we have the desire to serve, then we are qualified. Krishna qualifies us. If a pure devotee chooses us and reaches his hand, reaches out to us, and Krishna considers us eligible, although we would otherwise be ineligible. So, anyway, Prashantatma, uh, devotees, but even Mahamunis, great munis, they are not Prashantatmas, because in their mind they're not sure what is actually the truth. Even such great philosophers and yogis and jnanis, scholars, those who are liberated, mystics, they are completely unaware of what is the absolute truth. They cannot say. So this is that's why the title of this talk is the Enigmatic Lord Krishna, because it's very mysterious. Now, today morning I posted this, that somebody was commenting on one of my YouTube videos, and I replied to that. So he was saying, and this is a common thing which many people say, um, and actually Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments on this as well. They say, oh, I would like to read Bhagavad-gītā in my mother tongue or in Sanskrit. Or some people argue that Atma and soul is not the same. Soul is not the equivalent of the word Sanskrit word Atma. Yes, I mean, strictly speaking, semantics, if you consider, yes, from the origin of what it means, what the word soul means, and what the word Atma means. So, because the cultural understanding, so the culture um, is different, and therefore the etymology and sources of those words are different. Mm. So, how much one is deep in Krishna consciousness, whichever culture is deep in God consciousness, you will find words to express those ideas in the best way possible in that language. Now, because our Vedic culture, Vedic knowledge, Vedic heritage and tradition is the highest in the world, because uh, it has the most knowledge about God. And people like Arjuna, people like Yudhishthir Maharaj, the stature of the character of such people is unmatched anywhere in the world. So, greater amount of knowledge was revealed to such personalities who were extremely great devotees as compared to other parts of the world where messengers like Prophet Muhammad, um, Jesus, or Moses, they came among people who are not so advanced in culture. So for them, there was more rudimentary understanding that was given. And even pre Christianity, pre Islam, the Vedic culture was there all over the world. And it deteriorated over time in the lands outside of Bharatvarsha, outside of the current Bharatvarsha. Right? So, our culture, our knowledge, our heritage is the topmost. And therefore, the words that are used have more weightage, more depth than other languages. But that does not mean that those who know, for example, Sanskrit, can understand Bhagavad-gītā, can understand the absolute truth, can understand all the secrets of existence. No, they cannot. Because Krishna says, you know, even great sura-gaṇāḥ and maharṣayaḥ, they cannot understand me. They are experts in Sanskrit. You know, they cannot understand him. So why? If the word Atma and the Paramatma is all, the correct meaning is there only in Sanskrit, then why can't they understand? And why can the devotees who are reading Prabhupada books in English, in other countries even, or not only English, even in other languages translated from Srila Prabhupada's English books, they are becoming devotees and surrendering their lives to Krishna. Why is that happening when they do not know Sanskrit very well? So the language is not so important. The message is important, and the message can be conveyed by a pure devotee in any language, any language. So, whichever language he speaks, he can convey the absolute truth. And actually, the dictionary. Now, a word may mean something, and that is mentioned in the dictionary. Who has compiled the dictionary? Usually, people, right? People, some linguistic scholars, right? Especially concerning religious terminology. The persons who can actually define these terms is actually a pure devotee. Because dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajano yena gatah sa pantha. Yudhishthir Maharaj says in Mahabharata that the truth of religious principles is hidden in the heart of an unadulterated pure devotee of Krishna. Dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam. So only he can understand the solid truth about religious principles, and he can understand the solid truth about all these words. And even if the words meant something else all this while, when a pure devotee uses them, he will purify the meaning of those words. And even ordinary linguistic scholars cannot reach the depth to which the pure devotee can reach. And by his usage of the words, he will convey the real meaning of those words. So, in that way, a pure devotee, he purifies language. That was my point in the morning post that I shared, comment section. So, in other words, the non Vedeshu Durlabham, even from the statements of the Vedas, although Krishna says, Vedescha Sarvair Ahameva Vedya, by all the Vedic statements, I am to be known. But then Brahma Samhita says, Vedeshu Durlabham, that we cannot understand Krishna from the Vedas. That's completely contradictory, but it's not. Because along with the words of the Vedas is another ingredient which is required. Although the words of the Vedas, yes, will reveal Krishna, but if you don't have the encryption key, you cannot. Like, for example, if you receive a document that is encrypted, you may have the document in your hand, but you have no idea what is inside it. So, the encryption key is this. 2931 Srimad Bhagavatam. Shri Bhagavan Jnanam Paramaguhyam me Yadvijnana Sarahasyam Tadangam cha Grihana Maya. See, the personality of God had said, knowledge about me as described in the scriptures is very confidential and it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. You may take it up carefully. Now, even this word, devotional service, in conjunction with devotional service, it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. You will not have access to this understanding if you just read the Sanskrit of this very verse. Case in point, because you see, sarahasyam, and it is translated as with devotional service. Rahasyam means secret. Sarahasyam means with secret. So, samanvitam, coordinated or, together with. Yad vijnana samanvitam sarahasam tadangam cha gaditam maya. So, this can be interpreted in many ways. And similarly, the way the words of the Upanishads, they are very, equivocal. Like, kind of allow, they kind of invite any interpretation. But to understand the real meaning of the words, one has to be a devotee. That's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gītā, Bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hetaduttamam. 4th chapter, 3rd verse, and 10th chapter, 1st verse, the last verse, where he says, I am revealing to Shrinume Paramam Vachaha. Right? We have just seen that. Uya eva mahabaho Shrinume Paramam Vacha Yatteham Priyamanaya Vakshami Hitakamyaya. Priyamanaya. Thinking you dear to me, I am speaking this for your benefit, my supremely confidential instruction. See? So Sarahasyam Tadangam cha Grihana Gaditam Maya. In conjunction with devotional service, we can understand. There is also explained in the other verse. Tah Sri Krishna Namadi na bhave grahyam indriyai sevanmukhe hi jihvado swayameva spuratyadaha. Material senses cannot appreciate Krishna's holy name, form, qualities, and pastimes. When a conditioned soul is awakened to Krishna consciousness and renders service by using his tongue to chant Lord's holy name and taste the remnants of the Lord's food, the tongue is purified and one gradually comes to understand who Krishna really is. So, Sevan Mukhe hi jihvado swayameva spuratyadaha. Swayameva spurati adaha. So, that is the main thing. नायमात्मा प्रवचनेन लभ्यो न बहुना न मेधया न बहुना श्रुतेन यमैवैष वृणुते तेन लभ्यस्तस्यैष आत्मा विवृणुते तनुं स्वाम. So, what is that? Upanishad. Um, okay. Vedaśatra Upanishad as well. The Supreme Self cannot be reached by argumentation, by applying one's independent brain power, or by studying many scriptures. Rather, he alone can achieve the Self, whom the Self chooses to favor. Self means here, with a capital S, it's the Supreme Self. To that person, the Self reveals his own true personal form. So, in other words, when the Supreme Lord chooses who can understand him, that person only can understand him. But on what basis does he choose? Only a devotee he chooses. And so, when we read about Krishna, when we hear about Krishna, and when we chant his name, the whole point is to get in, get into the service attitude, service of Krishna, and hearing at the same time in conjunction. That's why tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshina. If that sevaya is not there, then we cannot understand. Simply receiving knowledge from the Guru, we cannot understand. Because that is also explained very nicely in this purport by Srila Prabhupada. यावन्निर्काय रथमात्मवशोपकल्पम् धत्ते गरिष्ठचरणार्चनया निशातम् ज्ञानासिमच्युतबलो दधदस्तशत्रुः स्वानन्दतुष्ट उपशान्त इदं विजह्यात् निशातं ज्ञानासिम् अच्युतबलो गरिष्ठचरणार्चनया निशातम् ज्ञानासिम् अच्युतबलो. So this is very important. As long as one has to accept a material body with its different parts and paraphernalia which are not fully under one's control, one must have the lotus feet of his superiors, namely his spiritual master and the spiritual master's predecessors. By their mercy, one can sharpen the sword of knowledge. And with the power of the Supreme Personality God of Godhead's mercy, one must then conquer the enemies mentioned above. In this way, the devotee should be able to merge into his own transcendental bliss, and then he may give up his body and resume his spiritual identity. So, Garishtha Charanarchanaya Nishatam. By, so, by serving who? The lotus feet of the superiors, namely the spiritual master and his predecessors, and also the senior devotees who are the senior disciples of the spiritual master also are Garishtha. Garishtha means seniors, superiors. Hmm. Of course, a materialist will say Garishtha means superiors like father and mother. Father and mother may not always be superior in spiritual knowledge. They may be superior in age and, you know, being providers of the body and who nourished the child. But they may not be superiors in terms of knowledge. We're talking in terms of knowledge and devotion to the Supreme Lord. The seniority is not based on age, but on one's surrender to Krishna. Even in spiritual circles, seniority is not based on the date of Diksha or initiation. Oh, somebody has taken initiation prior and therefore he's senior. It does not necessarily have to be that. The one who takes to the instruction of his spiritual master in the most serious way, he is the most senior. But of course, out of etiquette, a pure devotee or a sincere devotee, he will offer respects to all the devotees who have been initiated before him. that etiquette must be maintained. But also, we should understand that who is first class, who is second class, who is third class. And that is not based on the date of initiation. That's depending on the faith and the knowledge and the involvement in service. So the classification is based on that rather than the date of initiation. So Garishtha Charana Archanaya, by serving. Archanaya means by serving. Nishatam means sharpened. Jnanasam. So jnana is like the sword of or weapon of knowledge, which is sharp, which is to be used to cut the bonds of illusion, the knots of illusion. You need a sharp instrument. So that the sword is. But if it's not sharpened, because you see, a knife can be very blunt. It looks like a knife, dangerous knife, but if it's blunt, it's not dangerous. So knowledge may, you know, look the same in the hands of non-devotee and devotee, or even uh, between devotees, the one who is more surrendered and the one who is not so surrendered, one who is like second class or first class compared to the third class. So they may know the same verses by heart, you know, but the level of realization, but the level of sharpness it has. That's why when different people speak, it has different effect on the listener. So that is because of the depth of the purity. Prabhupada said always, purity is the force. He did not say, of course, he said books are the basis, but then the same verse can be quoted by a neophyte, a complete non devotee, an impersonalist, or the first class devotee, or the second class devotee. So each time it has different effect. The force with which it hits the listener, the recipient, depends on how pure the speaker is. So nishatam, sharpened. So that sharpness will come with serving. Garishtha charanarchanaya, the lotus feet of the superiors, by serving the lotus feet of the superiors, like the spiritual master and the spiritual master's predecessors, and also the senior devotees, Garishtha. They all come under this category. So then, yes, our jnana will become sharpened. Then it will have effect, not only on others when we preach, but even on ourselves. The same knowledge will not act on us if we don't engage in service. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado, yasya aprasadan nagatih kutopi. If we don't satisfy the spiritual master by our service, we don't have any footing in spiritual life because he's not satisfied. Yeah. So unless we serve his instructions, he won't be satisfied. So when he is satisfied, then Krishna is satisfied, and when Krishna is satisfied, Yamevaisha vrunute tena labhyas tasyesha atma vivrunute tanum swam. The Lord reveals himself to such a devotee. Sevan mukhe jihvado swayameva spurati adaha. So the Supreme Lord will himself reveal to that devotee because he is satisfied. But how will he be satisfied? If the Guru is satisfied. How will the Guru be satisfied? When his instructions are served. So, व्यवसायात्मिका बुद्धि एकेह कुरुनंदना. Um, what is that? बहुशाखा है अनंताश्च बुद्धयो अव्यवसायिनाम. बुद्धयो व्यवसायिनाम. So those who are resolute in purpose, there should be singular focus for that person. What is that? The service to the Guru. Every morning we sing Guru Mukha Padmavakya Chityate Korya Aikya. Aikya means Eka. It's coming from the word Eka. Aikya means let that be the only thing in my mind. What is that? Guru Mukha Padma Vakya. The words emanating from the lotus mouth of the spiritual master. Let them be my only subject of contemplation. His teachings, his instructions, that should be the only thing in our mind. Chittete Korea Aikya. Ar na kori ho mane asha. So the whole song, Guru Vandana song, is actually ordering ourselves and reminding ourselves, um, ordering the mind actually, to always be conscious of the position of the Guru, of the bona fide spiritual master. Then we can have access to Krishna. Jahara prasade bhai, ei bhava toriya jai. Krishna prapti hoye jaha hoite. So, by his mercy only we can get Krishna. And that's why in the beginning we say, Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma. Vando mui savadhana mate. Savadhana mate. We are ordering our mind. Please be attentive. Savdhan. So because you are worshipping the spiritual master, the bona fide spiritual master, who can give you Krishna, who has the power to give you Krishna. And therefore, always contemplate on his instruction, make plans how to serve his instruction, and actually serve his instruction. So that should be the only thing. Chittete Korya Aikya, Arana Koriho Mane Asha. So that is called Garishta Charanarchanaya. Garishta Charanarchana. And by that Charanarchanaya, Nishatam Jnanasim, the sword of knowledge becomes sharpened. And then our own knots of material attachment will get cut, and our words will have power to cut other people's knots of attachment. It's not because of our words, it is because of the words of the spiritual master and Krishna, but because we become, if we become true to the service, sincere in our service to the spiritual master, and the words will have that power on the strength of the spiritual master's order. Because we're carrying out his order, by the strength of his order, the words will have power. Not that I should never think the words have power because of my speaking. No, who are we? So that's called nishatam, sharp. So somebody is suggesting 5, 10, 18 purport. What is that? Let's see. Hare Krishna. No, who is this Hare Krishna? तद्ब्रूह्य संगो जडवन्निगूढ विज्ञानवीर्यो विचरस्य पारः वचांसि योगग्रथितानि साधो ननः क्षमन्ते मनसापि भेत्तुम्. At your sir, it appears that the influence of your great spiritual knowledge is hidden. Factually, you are bereft of all material association and fully absorbed in the thought of the Supreme. Consequently, you are unlimitedly advanced in spiritual knowledge. Please tell me why you are wandering around like a dullard. O great saintly person, you have spoken words approved by the yogic process, but it is not possible for us to understand what you have said. Therefore, kindly explain it. So this is about Jada Bharat. Saintly people like Jada Bharat do not speak ordinary words. Whatever they say is approved by great yogis and those advanced in spiritual lives. Spiritual life. There is a difference between ordinary people and saintly people. The listener must also be advanced to understand the words of such exalted, spiritually advanced people as Jada Bharat. Bhagavad-gītā was spoken to Arjuna, not to others. Lord Krishna especially selected Arjuna for instruction in spiritual knowledge because Arjuna happened to be a great devotee and confidential friend. Similarly, great personalities also speak to the advanced, not to Shudras, Vaishyas, women, or unintelligent men. Sometimes it is very risky to give great philosophical instructions to ordinary people, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for the benefit of the fallen souls of Kali Yuga, has given us a very nice instrument, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. General mass of people, although Shudras and less, can be purified by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. And then they can understand the exalted philosophical statements of Bhagavad-gītā and Srimad Bhagavatam. You see, then we can understand. Our Krishna therefore adopted the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra for the general masses. When people gradually become purified, they are instructed in the lessons of Bhagavad-gītā and Srimad Bhagavatam. Materialistic people like Stri, Shudra, and Vijabandhu cannot understand words of spiritual advancement, yet one can take to the shelter of a Vaishnava, for he knows the art of enlightening even Shudras in the highly elevated subject matter spoken in Bhagavad-gītā and Srimad Bhagavatam. This is the power of the pure devotee. Very nice purport. So, by serving them, they can see the spiritual master. He will give the knowledge, but that's the other thing. This verse, which I'm showed many times. Sandipani Muni telling Krishna and Sudama, Tushtoham bodvija shreshthah satyah santu manorathah chandam syayatayamani bhavantviha paratracha. You boys are the best of the twice born, and I am satisfied with you. Tushtoham, the spiritual master is satisfied. May all your desires be fulfilled, and may the Vedic mantras you have learned never lose their meaning for you in this world or in the next. So, this is called Nishatam. When the Chandams, when the Vedic mantras or when the teachings of the spiritual master become stale to us, Yatayama means stale, Gatarasam means it becomes tasteless. Spiritual life becomes tasteless, and that means it will not be sharp anymore for us. It will not be effective to cut our knots of illusion because we are not serving and satisfying therefore the spiritual master. But if we serve, then we satisfy the spiritual master by his tushtoham, then spiritual life will remain ever fresh, and it will be sharp all the time. Otherwise, our teachings will not be sharp even for us, what to speak of others. So, Vedic mantras become manifest and unmanifest. Sometimes the words may be manifest, but the effect of the words does not manifest. That can be manifested or withdrawn. So this is very subtle. It doesn't just depend on the words alone. That's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said in one article, I read this, we did a class on this, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. The title of the article is Thakur Bhaktivinoda. He said there that, a person who quotes a verse saying that Krishna and his name are non-different, Abhinnatvan namanamino, Krishna's name and Krishna are non-different. A person can quote the verse and he can say the same thing, but it will not have the same effect as the person who has actually realized the non-difference of the holy name of Krishna and Krishna himself. To know it theoretically, that Krishna and his name are non-different, is one thing. To actually realize it is another thing. The person who has realized, that person's word is much more heavy, pregnant, than the person who just quotes it without realization. So one can be expert and he can memorize all the verses, but if he doesn't have the realization, then it's not the same as the person who may not know any verse but who has realized completely the knowledge of Krishna. যেই কৃষ্ণ তত্ত্ববেত্তা সেই গুরু হয়। কিবান্যাসী কিবা শূদ্র কিবান্যাসী কিবা বিপ্র কিবান্যাসী শূদ্র কেনে নয়। যেই কৃষ্ণ তত্ত্ববেত্তা সেই গুরু হয়। So it doesn't matter who one is in social position, social status. If he knows Krishna's signs, then he can be a guru. Now, regarding this, so this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila, chapter 6, text 81. Actually, 87, 88 is when you will find more. But this is actually a conversation between Gopinath Acharya and Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya. Gopinath Acharya is the brother-in-law of Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya during Chaitanya Lila. So, Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya at this point was a Mayavadi, who's a logician, but he's not devotee yet, an impersonalist. And he was very, very great, in fact, um, in his scholarship. But you see, it is this. Start. The Gopinath Acharya continued from 79. I'm reading 6.79. Gopinath Acharya continued, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is celebrated as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those who are ignorant in this connection find the conclusion of knowledgeable men very difficult to understand. So here the topic was because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first made his appearance in Jagannath Puri just prior to this conversation, and he fainted in Jagannath temple out of his ecstasy. And Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya, uh, being a resident of Jagannath Puri, he visits the Jagannath temple, but he was still impersonalist. He saw and he brought him out of compassion for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He thought Chaitanya Mahaprabhu fainted because of some, health reasons or what. But he saw that he was still breathing, so okay, he brought him home, had him brought home, and he was being attended to. So while he was inside like that, Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya and his disciples were having this conversation with Gopinath Acharya, who is the brother-in-law of Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya. So Gopinath Acharya is trying to tell them that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself. But they were not accepting that fact. So that's the whole context. So Shishyagana kahe, Ishwar kaha kaun pramane? Acharya kahe vigyamata Ishwar lakshane. The disciples of Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya retaliated. By what evidence do you conclude that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Lord? Gopinath Acharya replied, the statements of authorized acharyas who understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are proof. This is very important. The question is important, the answer is also important. Because we should not accept anyone without Vedic references. Many people nowadays come and say, I'm God. Or they don't directly say because, it will be, people won't like it sometimes. So they say indirectly and carry this, you know, ego or aura around them that they are as good as God and they're very knowledgeable and this and that. So here they're asking this question that by what evidence do you conclude that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Lord? We must ask evidence. That is actually an intelligent question. Then he is saying the statements of authorized acharyas who understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are proof. शिष्य कहे ईश्वर तत्व साधि अनुमाने आचार्य कहे अनुमाने नहे ईश्वर ज्ञाने. So the disciples of the Bhattacharya said, we derive knowledge of the absolute truth by logical hypothesis. Gopinath Acharya replied, one cannot attain the real knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead by such logical hypothesis and argument. See, this culture of debating and logical debates, nyaya, tarka, these were very common in the Indian philosophical landscape. And even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, if you see, he had debates with Prakashananda Saraswati, Keshav Kashmiri, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, the Buddhists, the Sri Vaishnavas, the Tattvavadis, the Chand Kazi, the Islam, the Muslims. So all these people, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had, discussions with them, dialogues with them, debates with them, and that was very common in those days. Intellectual debates. Nowadays people, have physical, like wrestling competitions, martial arts competitions. People used to have similarly intellectual competitions, and great logicians, they will come and argue their point, um, and they discuss philosophy. So, and in fact, there is an article by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in the Harmonist magazine where he says, I think I've done a class on that as well, where he says that, if the state or the government should actually arrange for such public conversations between, you know different religious leaders, and let them discuss their philosophy on stage, having some rules set in place prior. um, the rules being that civility should be maintained, there should be no provocative language, um, and it has to be done in all civility with complete respect for the other person. Purely on the ground of philosophical points, there should be a respectful debating platform that has to be set by the government, and all public should be allowed to watch such conversations. Thankfully, in today's context, firstly, I mean, the government, we can't expect anything close to that even by the government. I mean, they do organize some interfaith dialogues, but those dialogues don't really delve into this philosophy deeply, and there is no attempt to kind of understand philosophically and theologically the whole teachings of that particular religious denomination. Interfaith dialogues are just very superficial, just focusing on some customs, some respect for their customs, this custom, that, just that, and not very deep. The government does. I mean, even in Singapore, they have these, religious harmony initiatives where there are interfaith dialogues, so that all religions, not all actually, they don't invite us. For example, they they have some, some chosen groups or organizations where they have these people represent that religion, and they have some dialogues. Yeah, I mean, the initiative may be good, but the way it should be done is, it should be the most important thing that should be telecast, broadcasted, and there should be more awareness around these interfaith dialogues. But usually there's not. It's just a, I would say it's not very effective. It's just having superficial respect for others, but the aim of such dialogues is not just to have respect for others. That should be the baseline already in the dialogue. They should always be respecting others. But the thing that should be achieved in such dialogues is that what or who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and what is the best way forward, and so that people can actually make decision for their own lives. Um, And when knowledge is broadcasted like that, then whoever will have the superior argument or superior, especially scriptural presentation. Now, even from Krishna consciousness, if somebody represents Krishna consciousness and if he's not very advanced in his presentation, he may lose to a person of another denomination in debate, or he may not be able to prove the uh, glorious nature of our Vaishnava theology, our philosophy. That does not mean ours is inferior. So a person, of course, who he should know. That's why we should read our scriptures very properly. And then, if it is presented by an able person who is, who understands this, then definitely it will come out that bhakti is the supreme, and people will understand that. And also, it is not actually to defeat the other person. It is to show even him that even in your scripture, the thing that is being glorified is bhakti to Krishna, or you call him in another name, but it's the bhakti process of bhakti, devotional service, that is to be, and especially in this world, in this yuga, chanting the holy name, that should be given stress. Even if you follow another religion, follow that instruction of chanting the name that is revealed to you. Chant, put focus on that. So that same thing with more in-depth knowledge is there in our scriptures. That's it. So anyway, by hypothesis, logical argument and hypothesis, we cannot understand Supreme Personality of Godhead. So then, what is the use of debates, right? It's the next question. Because if we cannot understand by just tarko pratishtha, so that is there. Uh, so by argument, we cannot come to the conclusion. So then, why have these debates? Why did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu engage in these debates? Or why did Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur suggest something like that? Because it is not actually the debate that will take it forward, but the culture of hearing. That is one thing. And especially the presentation of the pure devotee. It is just debate is actually not the real thing that will take the understanding of the people forward. What will actually take them forward is the presence of the pure devotee or a representative of the pure devotee. Because debate is only, to appeal to the general mass of people, that um, give it a fair give a fair platform to everyone, and whoever can kind of present his case the best, people can make out. I mean, it's people can make out for their own, for their own. Like today there is a platform like that, actually, fortunately, although the government is not doing anything like this, but podcasts are actually the platform where you can have long format conversations with other guests sometimes, guests, all kinds of guests, and they're doing this. This format is very becoming very popular nowadays, podcast. So we can have discussions, like dialectic discussions between two philosophies. um, so this is one of the content ideas that I have for our media program as well, that one of the, I mean, the article that we did on Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's conversation with the Islamic scholar is a classic example of such, presentation. But eventually, it will be nice to even have a conversation with the actual people of the other faith, and have it in a very civil way, respectfully. Just like we should learn this art from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how he, humbly went into the debates, and crush them totally. At the same time, to elevate them. The loser is not actually the loser, because he will also be the gainer in such this thing. So it's the presentation of the devotees that will reveal the truth. So debate is just a pretext, a pretext. So anyway, so here Gopinath Acharya says a logical hypothesis and argument is not the basis for understanding God. Oh yeah, this comment has been there all this while. I did not realize. Okay, so Dimitri is asking, what should be the aim of such debates? To establish the truth by presenting one's philosophy? Yeah, to actually seek out the truth. So, of course, everyone who is debating, he will think he has the truth. But one should be actually seeking the truth. Even the one who's debating, if there is good points, we can always take those points. Like, we always quote sometimes, from the Bible. As you sow, so shall you reap. As you sow, so shall you reap. If you sow a seed of mango, you will get a mango fruit, mango tree and mango fruit. And that is the law of karma. So that we will take it. Why not? So it may not, see, philosophy may not match on every single thing, because, sometimes acharyas, they use different methods to convey the message. So sometimes it may not exactly, you know, uh, tally, but the main things, they will tally, because the principles don't change, the application. um, the acharya may devise a way how to engage the population that he's dealing with in Krishna's service, that they can understand. So that's why there will always be some differences in details, but the ultimate aim should be same. So to understand what is the truth, I mean, inquiry, athato brahma jigyasa. So, what is it? Arunava Biswas. Jesus is a servant of Lord Hari. Yeah, that's what we are saying. So, um, we do not see that they are all different religious people. It's all, they're just understanding at a different level, same religion. Okay, so that has to be conveyed. The truth has to be presented, and of course, if you, that's why it is said, Shri Krishna daya karaho vichar. विचार करेले चित्ते पावे चमत्कार. So Sri Krishna Chaitanya daya karo vichar. If you are indeed interested in logic and argument, kindly apply it to the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If you do so, you will find it to be strikingly wonderful. You see? So we should understand Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy through logic and reasoning. Then we will understand that it is actually wonderful. Nothing can compare in this world, in this universe, to that. So this can be expanded upon. Actually, that's what is done in this chapter. Um, but it can be expanded upon with so many citations from various different, religious scriptures or whatever. So that's how logic and argument can be applied. That's why the devotees, the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they are good with anything. If you want to debate with Shastric quotations, they can do that. If they, if you can only use certain scriptures, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was like that. He was once challenged for a debate, theological debate, and he said yes. And then the organizers, they came back and said, you know what? They fixed a date and then place. Then they were actually kind of very hesitant. I mean, very nervous to face him because he was a widely accomplished scholar and he just accepted the debate without even hesitating. So they were like, afraid that they would lose. So, but they were very much Mayavadis, like Smarta, that kind of thing. So they said, no, okay, there is a condition. You cannot use the Puranas and Itihas. You must only use the Shruti, Upanishads and Vedas. And then finally they said, no, you cannot. After some time, they said, okay, you actually cannot use Upanishads also, only Vedanta and Vedas. He said, okay. Every time he's saying okay. Then finally they said, okay, you cannot use any scriptural injunctions. You can just use only logic. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, okay. I think in the end the debate never even happened. The thing is, he was he could do anything. Whichever limitation you put on him, he will still present his argument. That's how adept we must be in our presentation. And also it has to be entered. See, these debates have to be entered with humility because otherwise Krishna is very expert at ruining our ego, hurting our ego real bad if we go with ego. The whole point is to be going there with a mood of service to introduce this, but at the same time being strong in the arguments, but also respectful to the person on the other side. So, and there's another verse. सिद्धांत बोलिया चित्ते ना करो अलस इहा होते कृष्ण लागे सुदृढ़ मानस. A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus, one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. So, in other words, we should not shy away from opposing viewpoints because sometimes, especially when we are not so sure about what the answer is, we may want to like shy away from the debate, shy away from the question, and you know what, I don't want to look at it. I don't want my faith to be, kind of disturbed by this. Of course, if we are not sufficiently strong in our philosophical understanding, then we can be shaken, and therefore it is said, Mayavadi Bhashya Sunila Hoy Sarvanash. We should not listen to the Mayavadis, but we can listen to their arguments when presented by the pure devotee like Prabhupada. He presents to us the Mayavadis' arguments and he actually counters them as well. So that is wanted, that is needed. And you know we have to actually study these conclusions, and even when somebody throws some argument, we need to know how to counteract that. So just like any sport, nobody goes to the main arena and plays the sport without practicing it you know over and over again. Like even if you're a cricket player, for example, you will practice in the nets how to bowl and how to bat, how to field, catching practice, batting practice, bowling practice. Or if you're a soccer player, how kicking practice and all these things will be there, and strength training. So much training is there so that when one actually goes on the arena, one can give his best performance. Similarly, these debates are events in time. They're not like, they have a limit of time and space. So, I mean, in the sense that within that time, you have to make the best presentation, and you should be able to take in any argument and present our thing, our philosophy, everything. So, training should be there. That's why we must get accustomed or acclimatized to our philosophy on a deep level. Hmm. If we're reading something and something is not clear to us, it's okay to question it, not with a mood to challenge it, but to investigate and get to the bottom of it. This is called pariprashnena. You see, Krishna was speaking in Bhagavad-gītā, and at many times Arjuna asks a question to clarify something that he was not clear about. Like, for example, Kasik. I mean, Throughout the Bhagavad-gītā, he asked so many questions. Fourth chapter, Krishna just said, I spoke this to sun god, Vivasvan, and Vivasvan instructed it to Manu, Manu to Ikshvaku. And this way it has been coming, and over time, it was lost. And today I'm repeating the same thing to you, Arjuna. And Arjuna said, wait a minute. What? You spoke to the sun god. How is that possible? Like, you are my contemporary now, and he is so much more older, and then you spoke to him? What are you saying? And he did not ask it in a challenging way. Pariprashna means clarify. I'm unable to fathom what you just said. I want clarification. So, because it's beyond my reasoning power, what is happening, what we are saying. Because I can understand that you are my contemporary, but what is it that you're saying that you spoke to sun god? What do you mean? When did you go there? When did you do that? He's much more older, and he's already, Surya Vamsha is there, Ramachandra Bhagavan came there millions of years ago. But how is that you spoke to sun god? What are you saying? So then Krishna says, yes, bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavacharjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam vetha parantapa. 4.5 Bhagavad-gītā. Krishna says, yes, both you and I have taken many births. I can remember all of them, but you cannot. In other words, he's saying, Arjuna, when I spoke to sun god, you were also there in my previous birth. Many births maybe before. I can remember all of them, you cannot. That's why you don't have the memory of that incident. But you were there, and you were present in that same assembly when I was speaking to the sun god. And I spoke it. I remember entirely what I spoke, and that's why I'm saying it now. But you don't remember because we are both different. I'm the Supreme, you are infinitesimal, so you're apt to forget. So then, once he said that, then Arjuna was like, oh, okay. So Krishna continues speaking. So, whenever something is not clear, it's okay to question, and we should, in fact, question. And that's not audacity or lack of respect. We should do it out of respect with a view to actually learn, not to challenge. In our mind, we must be very clear what we are learning, at least to the point where we can be, because there will be many things which are, beyond our comprehension. We should just take it as axiomatically when Krishna says it. But those which we can, and those which especially will be points of, that will be contested in a debate, in a conversation with somebody else, those things should at least be very clear to us. Those which are within our grasp of our human intellect, we should be clear about them. A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus, the one's mind becomes attached to Krishna. So, Parshuram Prabhu is saying, Rupa Goswami did not want to waste time in debating, and he scolded and punished Jiva Goswami for debating. This is a very interesting incident. So, there was this Rup Narayan, one debater who was, going around saying that, I'm greatest debater, I'm the greatest logician, I can defeat everyone. Then he went to Rupa Goswami in Vrindavan and he said, if you accept defeat, sign this. Rupa Goswami signed it. And now he's claiming everywhere that because Rupa Goswami is very famous for his devotional writings and all that. And he was a very accomplished scholar. So very reputed. So then suddenly he was going around saying that I defeated Rupa Goswami, I defeated Rupa Goswami. Then Jiva Goswami heard this. Actually, the Rup Narayan, he came to Jiva Goswami also and said, your uncle Rupa Goswami has already accepted defeat. Now you also want to accept defeat because, you are not more than him. Then Jiva Goswami got very angry and he defeated the scholar. Argued with him, defeated, humiliated him. Then Rupa Goswami, he chastised Jiva Goswami. Why did you waste your time debating? Human life is short. We have to use it for our cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Why did you waste time debating this person? Huh? And it will only not only waste time but also fuel one's ego, because that's what can happen when you engage in debate. You want to be the winner, you want to be showing off, you want to do a performance to the audience, you want some claps from the audience, you can get deviated with that. So it's very distracting, and you know for a person who is a devotee, it's a big distraction. Why should you pep up your ego like that and run the risk of a fall down? Of course, if that happens, that is actually detrimental, right? Jiva Goswami was not wrong in debating. Both showed very important aspects of devotional service at the same time. Rupa Goswami showed that we should not debate and waste time with people who just want to, argue for argument's sake and not wanting to learn anything. And Jiva Goswami is showing us that, when the honor of our Supreme Lord, the Acharyas, and the entire Parampara system is at stake, we cannot just sit silently on the sidelines, watching them, ridicule the philosophy, the Supreme Lord, the Acharyas, and the Parampara. We should debate. So, Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami were pulling at opposite ends of the spectrum. Like, one is we absolutely should not waste time in debating, and Jiva Goswami actually debated and humiliated him. So, why did they show this? Both are important. Both are important. Um, we should not waste time, and we should not be approaching it with ego, and all the things that Rupa Goswami said about that debate, that we should not waste time and fuel our ego, that is also right. And to save the honor of the parampara, or to you know like Baladev Vidyabhushan, for example, he wrote a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, because other Vaishnava Sampradayas, they were not considering Gaudiya Vaishnavism as a authorized parampara Sampradaya. They were saying that every Sampradaya has a tika or a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, but your Sampradaya does not have. That means yours is not bona fide. You don't have a standing. You don't have like a position statement of your Sampradaya on the Vedanta Sutra. How are you considered bona fide? So when the Sampradaya is at stake, honor of the Sampradaya, Garishta Charanarchanaya Nishatam. So we have to serve that. Serve our predecessor Acharyas, our Acharyas. We cannot let him be ridiculed. Navamanyata karhichit. And if I stay silent, I will also be part of the ridicule. So therefore, I must then present Krishna's knowledge according to what I've received from the Acharyas. And then the famous Govinda Bhashya of the Vedanta Sutra was compiled by Baladev Vidyabhushan. And Govinda Dev, the deity, actually spoke and he was writing. And that's why it's called Govinda Bhashya. And then Gaudiya Vaishnavism was accepted as a bona fide sampradaya. So it has to be done from the point of service. For personal aggrandizement, for personal showing off that I'm the best debater, I am the prolific speaker. Krishna, Krishna. So that should be avoided. Personal self-aggrandizement, that should be avoided. But for the service of Krishna, we should. So sometimes uh, sometimes some Ritviks, especially from Russia, they say that why you have a Vyasasan in your temple. because in our temple room there is a no seat where we sit and do the classes from. So why do you have a seat? You should sit on the floor. You should be humble. Why are you trying to become a guru? Um, why you have a seat there? They're always wary of this thing. So the point is, the respect is not. If the respect is for the book, it has to be on a higher pedestal. And also, when you are addressing many people, it is much easier if you are at a higher pedestal. But that higher pedestal does not mean that I am higher than you. The scripture is higher. The purports of Prabhupada, which are being mentioned in the book, that is higher. And from that, taking that into account, the seat is higher. That doesn't mean I am higher than you. No. In fact, the speaker should approach the speaking with an attitude to serve the audience, not to show off some scholarship to the audience. That's not the point in speaking. It is to serve Krishna and Guru actually, and automatically that will serve the audience as well. And purification of everybody happens in that setting. So that is the whole point. So, but if I do it from a point of view of, I want to show off my scholarship, I want to be known as this great speaker, who motivates people, in spiritual life. If I do that kind of thing, then that is, what is that called? That is material. And I should also be practicing what I'm preaching. So I should follow that. So then it will carry effect. And it is to be done in the mood of service. So Rupa Goswami and Jiva Goswami in that incident, they showed both extremes because both extremes have to be employed. It is not that we have to, find a middle. Yeah, Rupa Goswami is showing one extreme, Jiva Goswami is showing another extreme. So we should be like, a bit here or a bit there, have a middle path. No, no. They did this because to show, because when it is two separate characters, then it's easy for us to grasp also. Like Rupa Goswami on one side of the whole argument and Jiva Goswami on the other side. And there was no argument, thought process. But both should be equally imbibed by the proper devotee. One should be as extreme as Rupa Goswami regarding avoiding debates for personal aggrandizement and wasting our time just to prove my logical abilities are better than yours. All kinds of personal considerations should be completely out, as strongly as Rupa Goswami showed it. And one should be as strong as Jiva Goswami in the matter of, thwarting all kinds of pseudo philosophies which attack and, um, how to say, insult Krishna or the acharyas or the sampradaya. Both have to be done. So that is the right combination to have. Of course, it will cause some agitation. So therefore, we must rise to the challenge. We must learn our scriptures thoroughly and debate them ourselves. Recently I, kind of started this thing. No, it's not my idea. I got this idea from YouTube, actually, honestly, to be very honest. Um, from a philosophy student, Western philosopher. Um, I mean, of course, our philosophy is unmatched, but the point is not about the philosophy, but a method. So what he does, the way he does, I mean, his study of philosophy is, of course, he studies many books of many philosophers and many things, but also he has many notebooks where one of those notebooks is his contemplation or um, contemplation notebook where he if some topic or philosophical topic kind of um, he's not, he wants to get to the bottom of it and be able to articulate his arguments very nicely. He wants to, he has this book, notebook, where he engages in debate with himself. He writes and then he offers counter argument. And then now, if he's not sure of the argument of the answer, then he will actually consult wherever the sources are, and then he comes back and then addresses that, or he thinks about it and how to address this argument, how to put the best argument for this. In that way, he has one book. So I found that actually very good idea. So I have started this as well. It's called the Tattvavit book, notebook, where I um, kind of put everything that is in my mind about a certain topic. I just started only, so it's not really just the first subject I'm just writing there. So just write there, and then whatever comes to your mind about that subject. And sometimes it's a diagram, like an arrow and like a mind map. So to get the whole idea on paper. So and then debate that. Not to debate means again, um, to get to the bottom of the whole subject and to be very clear in our reasoning, because sometimes we glaze over the reasoning. We accept something and then we don't really question very hard about it, and then we accept, like that. But blind acceptance is also not encouraged in our thing, because like Arjuna, he questioned Krishna at every point. When Krishna says, for example, um, that one should know the art of work in the second chapter, one should be equipoised in success and failure, and one should do one's duty and everything. So Arjuna immediately asks, what is the symptom of a person who has achieved such equilibrium? And how does he eat? How does he walk? How does he speak? How does he sit and how does he move about? So I want to know, like, how does that person live? So you see, that's a relevant question, because, okay, it's all good. Okay, one should be equilibrium, but how to actually live in this world? How does it look practically? How does that person actually exist? So that's a very relevant question, right? Because we have to exist like that. If Krishna is saying that that's what you should do, then if I have to do that, then how am I supposed to conduct myself by doing that? So these kind of questioning should be there. So we should not, like, okay, um, we should not accept anything, um, just, how to say, without being clear about what we're accepting. Let me put it that way. We should know what we're accepting. Of course, in the beginning, you will not have answer to everything right at once. So okay, you start first, you read and everything, and slowly you will get a grasp of the philosophy, like an overview kind of idea of the entire philosophy. You may not be able to quote exact references, but you will have a good idea when you sufficiently read Prabhupada's books seriously. Then you will develop this idea of the entire philosophy. You will know. So that's the first reading. That's called, actually, there's a, in philosophical terms, in reading also has some four. I took some notes on this as well. Four levels of reading, which is interesting. So I just took notes. Elementary reading, which is just reading. Inspectional reading, analytical reading, and synoptical reading. Okay, so some of things we don't really do, especially synoptical. But yeah, we do in our own way. So we will not do the exact way that the Western philosophers do it. But so analytical. So first is elementary reading, and then analytical reading. No, inspectional reading, and then analytical reading and synoptical reading. So, so first reading is just reading, and then getting the whole an idea of the whole thing. Then next is we have to, like, inspecting it, and like categorizing, and kind of making taking note of important references, And how like Prabhupada gives his lectures. If you listen to his lectures, then he will quote some verses often. Then we can see that okay, these are the verses that are being quoted often. Or sometimes if you read Chaitanya Charitamrita, for example, or even if you read Shat Sandarbhas, you will find that actually they refer to Bhagavatam verses and some other verses. And Chaitanya Charitamrita also you can find those things, like when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami quotes, or Sarvaśaḥ Bhattacharya, or all these personalities when they quote. So you will pick up those references. Some of them are from Bhagavatam, some of them are from other sources. So you can pick up those things, and in what context. And um, sometimes it's just prayers and taking note of the structure and the flow of the dialogue of Bhagavad-gītā, for example, or any such Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, the flow of the dialogue, or some kind, drawing out some charts out of it, like some devotees have done. They have done charts like the lifetime of Brahma, the time scales, and then the we just put in our temple room Goloka chart, that map of the universe and the spiritual world and everything with references on the sides. So drawing out those things, and for our own understanding, we read something, we can do something out of that to have a pictorial understanding of what is the first chapter. So say for example second chapter, something, whatever comes to our mind, however we realize it, take notes, and then you know you will get some insights from that. And um, listen to Prabhupada's lectures or devotees lecture, or not, or and always these lectures are not a replacement for Prabhupada's lectures or his books. These are only additional supplementary material. So hear from devotees, and then they will also synthesize quotes like Sundagopal Prabhu. He gives in one class, in one lecture, he will give so many quotations from many different places. So for us to do that kind of compilation would have been very difficult, but he just did it out of um, out of thin air almost. So, and we are taking advantage of that just by sitting. That's why there is this verse. There's a beautiful verse. Um, yeah. Okay. See, 13:26 Bhagavad-gītā. अन्ये त्वेवं न जानन्तः श्रुत्वान्येभ्य उपासते तेऽपि चातितरन्त्येव मृत्युं श्रुतिपरायणाः. Again, there are those who, although not conversant in spiritual knowledge, begin to worship the Supreme Person upon hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. Because of the tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. So they begin worship of the Supreme upon hearing about him from others. So this hearing is very important, because the insights that the devotees have by reading Prabhupada's books, when they share it, that is a bonus for us. Piece together different arguments, and then different verses put together in a context. That contextual presentation is very valuable, and sometimes it also addresses pertinent questions that we might have, or some issues that are taking place in the world, and how we should view those events from the shastra chakshusha, from the lens of the shastra, how to see these things, instead of just accepting the you know worldly version of things, of events. So because we can't escape from news, sometimes we can't escape from what is happening around us, right? We are seeing it, we are hearing it, we are dealing with it. But then we should deal with it, we should see it, we should hear about it, or engage with it according to shastric principles, in context. So acharyas have described such things, and even when acharyas have described, right, you have to actually pick up the book and do your research sometimes. Maybe, for example, how to study. Maybe Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has written something. I don't know. I have to open each and every article and see. So it depends on my knowledge of the books that he has written, or Prabhupada must have written something on this subject, on that subject, and maybe part of it is here in this purport, part of it is in some other place, part of it is in some back to Godhead article or something. So, it's all over the place. So that has to be synthesized, and contextual presentation has to be done. So then, this is when hearing is very, very beneficial, because the only effort you have to put is listen. You just have to sit down in one place and get in all the insights from that person who is giving the lecture, and you can take notes, and then you can actually ruminate on it. You can, study that. So you have all the material in one place in context. So that's a huge benefit of hearing compared to reading. It's not a replacement for reading, but contextual presentation. uh, Both are important, reading and hearing. So that's why you have to also hear from the right person. That's the other thing. You just can't hear from every Tom, Dick, and Harry. You know? So we should know whom we should hear from the spiritual master, and from the devotees who are true to the service of the spiritual master. You have to hear from them. So, um, so all this is important. Of course, like in today's verse, it is said, Krishna says, nobody can understand me, but the way to understand him is his mercy, and his mercy is accessed through his devotees. Um, says, अथापि ते देवपदाम्बुजद्वया प्रसादलेशानुगृहीत एव हि जानाति तत्त्वं भगवन्महिम्नो न चान्ये कोऽपि चिरं विचिन्वन्. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. Chiram, which in many years means like many thousands and millions of years. Yeah, but going back, I discontinued from that conversation of Gopinath Acharya. So on the same point, actually, I'll just complete this conversation so that we will end also our presentation. Okay, so disciples of Bhattacharya said, we derive knowledge of the absolute truth by logical hypothesis. Gopinath Acharya said, we cannot do that. We cannot reach the conclusion properly by that way. So then, अनुमान प्रमाण न है ईश्वर तत्व ज्ञाने, कृपा विना ईश्वरेर केह नहीं जाने. Gopinath Acharya continued, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead only by his mercy, not by guesswork or hypothesis. Now, ईश्वरेर कृपा लेश होय तो याहारे, সেই তো ईश्वर तत्व জানিবারে পারে. The Acharya continued, if one receives but a tiny bit of the Lord's favor by dint of devotional service, you see, this is the point. Wait a second. So by dint of devotional service is not exactly mentioned in the verse, but Prabhupada added it there, you see. But it's actually very important, because the Lord's favor is only achieved Yasya Prasadat Bhagavat Prasada. Lord's favor is Bhagavat Prasada. But how does Bhagavat Prasada come? Yasya Prasadat. Who's that Yasya Prasada? Vande Guru Sri Charanarvindam. So the Guru's Prasada, Guru Krishna Prasada Paya Bhakti Likhana. So Guru Prasad if we get, then we get Bhagavat Prasada. And Bhagavat Prasad, when we have the Lord's favor, then we can understand Krishna. So, how to get Guru Prasad, favor of Guru? By following his instruction. Okay. So, if one receives but a tiny bit of the Lord's favor by dint of devotional service, he can understand the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then he quotes the same verse, Athapite deva padam bhujadvaya. You see, from this, as they are having this conversation, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Gopinath Acharya, I mean Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's disciples and Gopinath Acharya, he's quoting from the Bhagavatam. And here you can take note, you see, oh, this verse is actually, that means very important to quote this. So in this way we learn verses. So when we study the conversations of these great devotees and study the conversations and lectures of Prabhupada, letters, um, and his purports like this. In purports also there are so many verses from Upanishads and everywhere. So we can take note of these and actually memorize them and quote them when necessary. Not just when we're arguing with someone else, but also for our own clarification, always seeing it from the Shastric viewpoint. Okay? अथापिते देव पदाम्बुजद्वय प्रसादलेशानुगृहीत एव हि जानाति तत्त्वं भगवन्महिम्नो न चान्ये कोऽपि चिरं विचिन्वन्. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate in order to understand the supreme personality of Godhead are unable to know you even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. So, and next. यद्यपि जगद्गुरु तुम्ही शास्त्र ज्ञानवान पृथ्वी ते नाहि पंडित तुम्हार समान ईश्वरेर कृपा लेश नाहि को तुमाते अतएव ईश्वर तत्व ना पार जानिते. Gopinath Acharya then addressed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. You are a great scholar and a teacher of many disciples. Indeed, there is no other scholar like you on earth. Sarvabhauma, you know, Sarvabhauma means Bhumi is the earth. Sarvabhauma means the whole earth. And this Bhauma means one who has conquered the earth. Sarvabhauma means he has conquered all the lands. So he is an intellectual conqueror. He conquered all intellectuals. Intellectual conquests, not a military conquest in this case. But even a military conquest, a conqueror, he can be named like this, Sarvabhauma. But Sarva Bhumi he has conquered. All lands he has conquered. So that's why he's called Sarvabhauma. That means the Pandits from all over the world he has conquered. First of all, India, Bharat used to be the epicenter of all learning, at least 500 years ago. Europe, they all talk about this age of enlightenment, but actually their philosophy were very, very backward. Even now it's backward compared to our Vedic philosophy. So it's not very advanced actually. So India was the seat of learning, and it was so rich in knowledge and culture and heritage that if you have conquered every place in Bharat, you've already conquered every other place, because nobody can stand a chance against Bharat, at least in those days. Of course, now systematically the British have, destroyed the education system that was there before, the Gurukula system and all of that. And now we are just slaves and we look up to the West for education, and we consider ourselves lucky and fortunate to go to their universities. That's how. And even if it's our universities, it's their science. So we think sometimes, oh, I am from IIT, I'm from, this and that, or IIM or IISc or something like that. But honestly, all that technology, science, and whatever is all their worldview, their system of education. Although it's our institution, but the system is theirs. So it's not really ours. Our Vedic education is far different from this. I mean, we have all these technicalities and all these things, but of course, modern technologies is something else. The West have done considerable advancement in that, which was there in yogic powers previously, to Vedic students, but it comes with its minuscule pros and Himalayan pros and cons. So there's very little good that comes out of this technological advancement. And the only good, actually, the only thing that you can do productively with the technology is to preach Krishna consciousness on a larger scale with a wider reach. Otherwise, it's actually a great web of entanglement for World Wide Web, they say. That's what it is. It's a web of entanglement for the materialists. Now you may say, no, 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 the materialists are also, doing work remotely and, kind of easing their life a bit. Actually, no, no. Because whatever, even the money they earn, it is more and more, they're getting more entangled in the materialistic complexities. They're not using the time for any better purpose, for spiritual purposes. And they're always getting lost in this. They're wasting their time, actually, in myriad ways. They're wasting their time. So it's a web of entanglement, worldwide web of entanglement. But the devotees, only they can extract the usefulness out of such advancements, or even the printing press for that matter, invented by the West, Charles Gutenberg, right? So, is it Charles? I think so, but Gutenberg. So he invented the printing press. Then, but then we are making use of it. So the technology is good for printing our books, but if you printed newspapers and some mundane things, not much use. Similarly, social media, you know, you can post all kind of nonsense here, but the one who is posting nonsense, they think that I can monetize my videos, I can actually earn a living just by making videos, so it's actually advancement. That's not advancement. You're putting out stupid ideas into the world, and you think it's very good ideas, but it's not, because they have nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. We're talking about those people who are doing materialistic things on the social media, and you're earning money in the process by making fool out of people, and you think that is convenience. Well, it comes with your own price. So yeah, I mean, there's so much. We think it is convenience and all, but we are actually adding to the noise, this Maya. So the devotees, though, they can actually put out proper content, right? Enlighten people. So anyway, coming back to the point, Gopinath Acharya then addressed Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. You are a great scholar and teacher of many disciples. Indeed, there is no other scholar like you on earth. Nonetheless, because you are bereft of even a pinch of the Lord's mercy, you cannot understand him even though he is present in your home. Hmm. And he continued, Tomar nahiko dosh, shastre e kohe, pandityadye, ishvara tattva jnana kabhu nahe. It is not your fault. Gopinath Acharya said, Sarvama, it is not your fault. It is the verdict of the scriptures. And you cannot do beyond the scriptures. So scriptures say that you cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply by scholarship, and I can see it practically in your life that you are a big scholar and you can't understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya retorts. He challenges the position. Sarvabhauma kohe, Acharya kohos Acharya koho savdhane tomate ईश्वर कृपा इथे की प्रमाणे. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya replied, My dear Gopinath Acharya, please speak with great care. Hmm. What is the proof that you have received the mercy of the Lord and that I have not? आचार्य को है वस्तु विषय होय वस्तु ज्ञान वस्तु तत्व ज्ञान होय कृपा ते प्रमाण. Now, Gopinath Acharya replied, knowledge of the summum bonum, the absolute truth, is evidence of the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya purport. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya informed his brother-in-law Gopinath Acharya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead may not have shown mercy to me, but what is the proof of his having shown it to you? Kindly let us know about this. In reply to this, Gopinath Acharya said that the summum bonum, the absolute truth, and his different potencies are identical. Therefore, one can understand the substance of the Absolute Truth by the manifestation of his different potencies. The summum bonum includes all potencies in one unit. The Absolute Truth combined with different characteristics is the original substance, Vastu. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. Thus, the Vedas state that the Absolute Truth has different potencies. When one understands the characteristics of the potencies of the Absolute Truth, one is aware of the Absolute Truth. On the material platform as well, one can understand the substance by the manifestation of its symptoms. For example, when there is heat, it is to be understood that there is fire. The heat of the fire is perceived directly. The fire may not be visible, but one can search out the fire by feeling heat. Similarly, if one can perceive the characteristics of the Absolute Truth, we can know that he has understood the substance of the Absolute Truth by the mercy of the Lord. See, in the Bhagavad-gītā it is said, "Nāham prakāsha sarvaśaḥ." The Supreme Personality of Godhead reserves the right of not being exposed to everyone. Sevam mukhehi jihvādo svayameva sphuratyadah. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1-2-234. The Lord reveals himself to a devotee when he is completely satisfied by the devotee's service. Thus, one cannot understand the Supreme Lord without his mercy. The Absolute Truth cannot be understood by speculation, and this is the conclusion of the Bhagavad-gītā. This kind of sounds like a circular argument of Gopinath Acharya, but it's not. So that's a big topic. Circular argument is a logical fallacy. It's a mistake, or circular argument means you define or you argue something. You want to prove something, but the means by which you prove that is the thing itself. For example, if I say, "Oh, there is a cat downstairs," and you may say, "How do you know?" "Oh, because there is a cat downstairs. That's why there is a cat downstairs." If I say like that, the proof which you're supposed to give, the proof has to be something else than the conclusion. It should lead you to the conclusion. But if the premise is the conclusion itself, then that is a circular argument. So that's the point. Like like recently there was this movie by the Western guy, yeah, American guy. He said, "What is a woman?" Because in America they're confused about what a woman is now. They don't know what is a man and what a woman is because of this transgender, movement. They and now do not know how to define and identify a woman. So this person, he wanted to expose this stupidity, and he went around asking these so-called gender experts, and asked them a simple question: "What is a woman?" So one of them replied, "A woman is a woman." Yeah, what is that? So, is a woman. It's a woman. Yeah, what is that woman? A woman is a woman. He kept on answering like that. So that's a circular definition. It means the definition contains the word itself that is supposed to be defined in the first place. So that is a circular. So here the premise is one cannot know. One has to. One can have knowledge only by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, right? Knowledge of the Absolute. So Sarvabhaumacharya says, "How do you know you have the mercy?" Or because I have the knowledge. So that sounds like circular, but actually it is axiomatic. Axiomatic also has no other proof beyond itself. Only the Shastric statements are the proof. So there is a fundamental axioms are fundamental elements in logic because you can't prove or disprove them, but you have to accept them because it is observable truth. I mean, it is a fact. It's widely accepted, and it's it is evident, self-evident truths. They are axioms. So axiomatic truth Um, Shastras have to be accepted axiomatically. Sometimes there may be logic attached to it, sometimes may not. But in all cases, they are true. Shastric statements are true because spoken by Krishna and given by Krishna. So, axioms may sound sometimes like logical, circular logic, but they're not. Hmm. Here the statement is, by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, you can have knowledge. Then Gopinacharya says, you cannot understand, you don't have the knowledge because you don't have the mercy. The Sarvaśaḥ says, how do you know that you have the mercy? Because I have the knowledge. So it's like a circular argument. So, but it's not because it's a Shastric statement. But everyone will claim knowledge, right? I have knowledge, so therefore the Lord is merciful to me, I can say. But the knowledge should be the same as what Krishna has said. Because I think I have knowledge. Everybody has a particular idea or a viewpoint, vichardhara. They have that. But and everybody is convinced of their own conclusions. But it may not be right. So how do we know whether it's right or not? It should match with what the Lord is saying in his scriptures, in his Bhagavad-gītā, Bhagavatam. What is that? The literal translation of the words. Because many people interpret their own meanings. Like, for example, Gandhi said, Kurukshetra means this body. So that is a different meaning than the actual meaning of the word Kurukshetra. So that is attaching some other meaning to the word, invented meaning. So if we take the actual meaning, this is called what is that word? Lakshana vritti, gauna vritti, abhidha vritti. Mukhya vritti. Mukhya vritti means the literal meaning of a word. This is also known as abhidha. See, this is 1087.1. Actually, this is in the Chaitanya Charitamrita as well. Sri Sridhar Swami elaborately analyzes this problem in terms of the traditional discipline of Sanskrit poetics. We should consider that words have three kinds of expressive capacities called shabdavrittis. These are the different ways a word conveys its meaning, distinguished as mukhya vritti, lakshana vritti, and gauna vritti. The shabda vritti, termed mukhya, is the primary literal meaning of a word. This is also known as abhidha, a word's denotation or dictionary meaning. Mukhya vritti is further divided into two subcategories, namely rudhi and yoga. Wow, that I did not know. A primary meaning is called rudhi when it is based on conventional usage, and yoga when it is derived from another word's meaning by regular etymological rules. For example, the word go, cow, is an example of rudhi, since its relation with its literal meaning is purely conventional. The denotation of the word pachaka, chef, on the other hand, is a yoga vritti through the word's derivation from the root pach, to cook, by addition of the agent suffix ka, pachaka. The one who cooks is a chef. So, okay. Rudhi vritti and yoga vritti. That is mukhya. Besides its mukhya vritti or primary meaning, a word can also be used in a secondary metaphorical sense. This usage is called lakshana. It's a metaphorical sense. Lakshana. The rule is that a word should not be understood metaphorically if its mukhya vritti makes sense in the given context. Only after the mukhya vritti fails to convey a word's meaning may lakshana vritti be justifiably presumed. This is very nice explanation actually. The function of lakshana is technically explained in the Kavya Shastras as an extended reference, pointing to something in some way related to the object of the literal meaning. Thus, the phrase Gangayam Ghoshaha literally means the cowherd village in the Ganga. But that idea is absurd. So here, Gangayam should rather be understood by its Lakshana to mean on the bank of the Ganga, the bank being something related to the river. Gaunavritti is a special kind of Lakshana where the meaning is extended to some idea of similarity. For example, in the statement Simho Devadattaha, Devadatta is a lion. Heroic Devadatta is metaphorically called lion because of his lion-like qualities. Like, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is called Simhaguru. Not that he is a lion, but lion-like quality of, roaring the truth. Okay, so that is Gauna Vritti. That means he has the guna of the literal word. Literal word is lion, but he has the guna of the lion. So Gauna Vritti, Lakshana. Lakshana is metaphorical or related. Okay, so this makes it very clear actually. In contrast, the example of the general kind of Lakshana, namely Gangayam Ghosha, involves a relationship not of similarity but of location. In this first verse of the 87th chapter, okay, so in this first verse of the 87th chapter, Parikshit Maharaj expresses doubt as to how the words of the Vedas can refer to the absolute truth by any of the valid kinds of Shabdavritti. He asks, Katham Sakshat Charanti? How can the Vedas directly describe Brahman by Rudha Mukhya Vritti, literal meaning based on convention? After all, the absolute is anirdeshya, inaccessible to designation. And how can the Vedas even describe Brahman by Gaunavritti, metaphor based on similar qualities? Because there's nothing similar to Brahman in this material world. The Vedas are Gunavrittayaha, full of qualitative descriptions, but Brahma is Nirguna, um, without qualities. Obviously, a metaphor based on similar qualities cannot apply in this case of something that has no qualities. Furthermore, Parikshit Maharaj points out that Brahman is sadasat, sadasatah param, beyond all causes and effects, having no connection with any manifest existence, subtle or gross. The absolute cannot be expressed by either yoga vritti, a meaning derived etymologically, or lakshana, metaphor, since both require some relationship of Brahman to other entities. Thus, King Parikshit is puzzled as to how the words of the Vedas can directly describe the absolute truth. It's actually very, very related to what we said in the morning as well. The use of language. How can Krishna be described? How can this knowledge of Krishna consciousness be described in material words, in material alphabets? So that's where the transcendental word aspect of Shabda Brahma comes into play. When the Lord speaks, even though it may be alphabets that we can understand and words we can understand, but the meaning becomes revealed when he speaks or when a pure devotee speaks. But when others speak, it's not revealed. So, in this way, we can understand this thing. All right, so I think I'll stop there. Is that the end of that conversation? Hmm. Oh, हर शरीरे हर शरीरे सब ईश्वर लक्षण वहाँ प्रेमावेश तुम्हें पायाच्छा दर्शन. Gopinath Acharya continued, you have seen the symptoms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu during his absorption in an ecstatic mood. तबु तो ईश्वर ज्ञान ना होय तोमार ईश्वरेर माया ए बलि व्यवहार. Despite directly perceiving the symptoms of the Supreme Lord in the body of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you cannot understand him. This is commonly called illusion. So that means Naham Prakasha Sarvasya. When the Lord chooses not to reveal, then you cannot see him even if the Lord comes in directly in front of you, and that's what happened in the case of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. A person influenced by the external energy is called Bahirmukhajan, a mundane person, because despite his perception, he cannot understand the real substance. Wow. Despite his perception, he cannot understand the real substance. Hearing Gopinath Acharya say this, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya smiled and began to speak as follows. इष्ट गोष्ठी विचार करे ना करे हो रोष शास्त्र दृष्टिय कही किच्छु ना लाई हो दोष. So Bhattacharya said, we are just having a discussion among friends and considering the points described in the scriptures. Do not become angry. I am simply speaking on the strength of the Shastras. Please don't take any offense. Mahabhagavat hoy Chaitanya Gosai ei kali kale Vishnu avatar nai. The Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is certainly a great uncommon devotee, but we cannot accept him as an incarnation of Lord Vishnu because according to Shastra, there is no incarnation in the age of Kali. In this way, the conversation was going. And actually, he was quoting from Shastra. So, he was quoting from Shastra and he accepted him as a great devotee, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to actually convey how to become a devotee. That's what he wanted to teach. But the fact that he's actually the Supreme Lord himself is not understood by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. And also, the position of what a devotee means, what it means to be a devotee is not understood by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, because at this point he did not understand what the power of devotional service yet. So anyway, the gist of today's class is this: that even the Name Viduḥ sura-gaṇāḥ prabhavaṁ maharṣayaḥ, even the great sages of the higher planetary systems, the devatas, the higher sages, Maharloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Satyaloka, they cannot understand the Supreme Lord. What to speak of us, right? That's the first point. But then what chance do we have? Why should we even read these books? Well, they cannot understand. But Krishna says, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo vetti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanmanayati mameti sorjuna. But those who know me and my appearances and activities, he does not take birth. Oh, that's very nice. Oh, easy. But no. Name viduḥ sura-gaṇāḥ prabhavaṁ maharṣayaḥ. But the demigods and the great sages cannot understand me. But those who understand me, they can go back. So sometimes he makes it sound very simple. Sometimes he says, oh, even the great people, they cannot understand. So, how to reconcile the two? Well, this is the path. Through the pure devotee, we can understand to an extent that is enough for us to completely be immersed in his service. That much we can understand. And we should understand that. Taking the knowledge from the bona fide spiritual master through the service. Then we can realize this. So that is the point. Okay, so I'll take any questions that are there. Sami is saying, one Christian told me that Jesus did not say to chant, "O my Father, thou art in heaven, hallowed be thy name from dawn to dusk." That's the statement of the Bible, right? So, how can you say that? Anyway, I need to be able to quote the exact chapter and verse, then I can. But from what I understand, Jesus said that. Hallowed be thy name doesn't mean chanting. Oh, then what? Glorify the name? Talk about the name? Then if you talk so much about the name, why can't you chant the name? If the name is so great, that means you have to fill your mouth with that name. Right? What is the use of only talking about the name so much but actually not chanting it? That means you do not even know the glory of the name, because abhinnatvan nama namino, the name and the name are non-different. So why don't you want to associate always with God? You want to be with God or not? If you want to be, then his name is God himself. If you chant his name, you are with him. That means you don't know the glory of the Lord. How can you hallow His name or glorify His name if you don't even know the glories of the name? Then next, those debates are just like preaching actually. Yeah, that's the point actually. It is just in the format of a debate, but actually debates will not get you anywhere. But debates will generate interest among people. And if they're fortunate, they will hear from an actual devotee. That hearing from a devotee will actually what will change the people. Suppose I'm just imagining if there is a nice conference and like a big arena, and there is this conversation and a debate between two religious leaders, and if our devotees are also invited to participate, and we study our scriptures very nicely, and we do some comparative study of their scriptures as well, and then if we nicely present our philosophy, and if they allow every religion to have their books, they have their bookstalls, so that the audience, they are allowed to like you know listen to the debates, and after that engage with their team in the book table, in the book shop, where they can actually purchase books of whoever they feel was argument was nice and all that. If yeah, actually I like what he said, I want to actually expand, I want to learn more about that. So if I want to, if that is there, and they can actually get the books and study, and then they can connect with the devotees and then come to the temple. I mean, it'll be very nice, in fact. um, but anyway, for now we have the great blessing now is that when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said those things, at that time they had to depend on the government for a platform like that. The great advantage we have today is we have these social media platforms where you can do these things independent of government intervention, and you can have audience sitting around everywhere, at least, even if not debate first, these kind of lectures, or sometimes having a dialectic conversation. May not be exactly be a debate, like for example, we can bring out, say, stoicism is a popular philosophy nowadays. So I mean Western philosophy. um, so they are points of view. There's a book called Dialectic Spiritualism. Srila Prabhupada also, one devotee who, I think Shamsun, I don't know who. So he was like kind of bringing all the main points of a certain philosophy, and then Prabhupada would actually reply to them. Um, but apparently, some of the points he did not accurately represent those philosophies. Although Prabhupada defeated those arguments, but those arguments are not from that philosophy exactly. So sometimes, you know, it may not. But I think it will be a good read. Actually, I did not read that book, Dialectic Spiritualism. Um, so similarly, present day. I mean, our present day philosophers, whatever is the philosophy that is going on around us, if we can have that kind of main points from this philosophy and our reply to those, that will be a good start even. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur did that in his book, I think Chaitanya Shikshamrita or something like this. So he kind of point by point he defeats all the other you know philosophies, and establishes that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's philosophy is the highest. For example, I'll just show one example in Madhya 9.49. तर्क प्रधान बौद्ध शास्त्र नवमते तर्के खंडिल प्रभु ना पारे स्थापिते. So here tarko pratishtha, right? Tarka apratishtha. Mahabharata says by tarka, by argument, you cannot reach the conclusion of religious truths. But here, argumentative tarka pradhana Bauddha Shastra Navamate Tarke Khandila Prabhu Na Pare Sthapite. The scriptures of the Buddhist cult are chiefly based on argument and logic, and they contain 9 chief principles. Because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defeated the Buddhists in their argument, they could not establish their cult. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu defeated them. So now in this purport, Bhaktivinoda Thakur actually brings out all the 9 points, um, and he gives answers to all of them. He logically defeats all these 9 points of the Buddhists. So you can have actually a good Buddhist understanding and rebuttal for that from our point of view in this purport. So similarly, what the contemporary argumentators or the debaters bring to the table, the arguments, if we can have answers to those things, and this thing is very good. You see this Buddhist thing. So similarly, all the other like the Islamic scholar conversation with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that was a good masterclass on how to speak to an Islamist or a Muslim. So similarly, the logicians, the impersonalists, the all kinds of Western philosophers. So Western philosophers, of course, we don't have examples in maybe Bhaktivinoda Thakur had. Every time they have new philosophies. No, even now they have some new philosophies. So once we have a good grasp of our philosophy and how the acharyas have addressed these other philosophies, then we can know how to address the newer philosophies, which will be more or less permutations and combinations of other philosophies, right? So like that, they're actually preaching. So we can start with that actually. Dimitri Prabhu is saying, like Ritvik system should be clear for everyone because sometimes devotees don't want to go through this considering it not so important. Yes. Our devotees especially, they should know. And this is why I want to test. I want to actually conduct these kinds of mock debates. Mock debates. Um, when that Ishwar Gaurang Prabhu from ISKCON, he made a video recently a few months ago saying that why I left Ritvik and joined ISKCON. So actually when that video came out, I watched the video and I found that all the arguments are, not so strong. But for me it may be like that. But for many devotees, even in our ISKCON, they are not clear on how exactly to address each and every argument. What are the references that we should show? Sometimes they get bewildered, because they don't have an answer. Because of course it's impossible to survey all the scriptures of Prabhupada to see what. But when the devotees have compiled all the references in one place, that's why our IS-77 book, our Ritvik video of Prabhu, and our 5 hours, 15-hour Ritvik presentation, and Nimanita Prabhu's videos. These things are to be studied, and reference should be taken, and then one should debate with himself. And if one is not capable of doing that, Krishna. So if one is not capable of doing that, then there have to be some mock debates. Prabhupada used to do that with his disciples. He will suddenly take the position of an impersonalist and he will argue like an impersonalist, and the devotees will put forward argument, and he will defeat their argument from impersonal point of view. He will defeat the devotees. And then once they bewildered and cannot answer, then Prabhupada will give the actual answer. So to make them strengthened in their to keep them alert in their philosophical understanding. So we have to be philosophically, intellectually alert. We cannot be like dumb fools, quoting shlokas everywhere, but when faced with the actual contest, we fail. We should get ready for that, because that is a service. That is a very important service. It should not be argumentative. We should of course strongly present our point, but we should, you know, It's something we have to learn over time. In the beginning, maybe one may not be perfect in doing it, and one may be actually, a little bit egotistic or what. But he will humble himself because Krishna also knows how to. When we approach the debate in a competitive mood, in a egoistic mood, Krishna will smash our ego. We will lose to somebody whom we thought we could easily defeat. So these kind of things may happen. So we're very careful how we should be humble, at the same time we should be thorough, and we should have the warrior spirit. So this over time we will learn, but at least firstly we should philosophically understand this. As Dimitri Prabhu correctly said, even our devotees should be very conversant with all our details of our arguments about the Ritvik system. Not only Ritvik system, every aspect of our philosophy, we should be similarly thorough. And this was the actual intention of my BVA program, which I started in, I think, 2021 or something. But I discontinued because I could not manage, because I was doing this, reading and examination papers and then correcting those. So it was a lot of work for me alone. So of course, if I have at least three or four people who can do the correction, the marking of the papers, then I can take it up. But first, I want to start some projects before I can get to that project. Every project has to be sustainable. It should not be like, I explode something and then after some time, it just dies off. It should not be like that. It should be sustained. So that's what I want to get to. So anyway, in the meantime, everyone should make an effort. You know, take, you know, um, good, study these, especially Ritvik system and even other aspects of philosophy, and have. I would encourage actually devotees to have a book like this, a contemplation book, um, a book where you know, of course, don't waste time. Don't run away from service and do these things. That's wrong. Okay, some devotees are spaced out. They go, Prabhu, actually, I'm doing a tattva vichar. No, you come and wash the toilet first. Okay, wash the toilet, and go out, distribute books, cook in the temple. All these services must be done, and then on top of that, one has to do those things. Not that at the expense of the other services. Never. Okay, Swadhyaya should be there in conjunction with devotional service, not in spite or in place of devotional service. Okay, don't overdo it and do it like a maniac. Okay, so Dimitri Prabhu. In Russia, one temple had such debates. One side presents atheistic view and another side Krishna conscious philosophy. And there's a referee who passes a verdict. Then they switch sides. All this was streamed live. Oh. Hmm. Parshuram Prabhu. Relevant verses with respect to today's topic 118, 19, 27, 41, 19, 16, 13, 38. So I would suggest you go and maybe take note of these and do your own research. I'm not going to go through all of that, but you know what? I'll take a note. I'll write in this myself. Today is the 10th. Okay. And earlier something 5, 10, 18, right? 5, 10, 18. Yeah, purport. Okay. So please take note and see your own convenience. Not convenience. You can read on your own. Dimitri, although the idea is nice, but presentation wasn't so convincing because I have never seen any quote from Srila Prabhupada's books. Really? Then that's no. We should. We should, of course, argument without any shastric presentation. What is that? Karti. When will BV assessment start again? Once my projects get, at least the video projects have to be smooth sailing, and then only I can take up another service like that. But anyway, in the meantime, see, I never had a BVA, somebody do BVA for us, for me. One should take up, in the meantime, um, one's own study, and we will actually create an atmosphere where essay writing competitions are there and debates, you know, something, and of course, philosophical understanding and mock debates. We should have these things. We should create this atmosphere. We will see how to do that. It'll take time, and this thing. Rajeshwari Mati, reading two types, Simhavalokam, reading and doing revision and going ahead like the tiger runs, not tiger, lion, not the tiger. The lion does that. Lion runs, not runs, walks. He walks. When he patrols, you should see a wildlife video. You can see how a lion walks. And when he patrols his area, he walks, looks back, and walks ahead. Vihangavalokana, general bird's view, reading for general. Yes. So Vihangavalokana and Simhavalokana are there. But anyway, all this has to be done with devotional service. Otherwise, we can do all these lokana, but nothing. You will remain in this loka only, in this material world. So we have to do devotional service. Then only we can understand everything properly. So we just have to debate with the proper Vaishnava attitude, don't we? Yes. Saurav, so I want to know about a thing that is always exposing any fraud guru is good way of preaching, or we just push Krishna consciousness philosophy and try to engage more people in Krishna's service, because I think so much exposing of this guru, that guru will agitate mind of common people and possibly they will start to hate us. See, and saying, I don't know, you please clear this matter to me. See, we don't engage particularly in exposing this guru and that guru. But sometimes we do those videos. Recently Enigmatic Prabhu did. But when was the last time we. Oh, you mean even the other Mayavadi gurus? No, sometimes we have to, do that. But not all our videos are about that. But sometimes it has to be that. Both should be there. It should not be just, you know, not just a positive aspect, negative aspect also should be there. Never mind, it is controversial, it is okay. For the materialist, practice makes perfect, but for the spiritualist, mercy makes perfect. Well, we should practice and seek mercy. Because the word there in Bhagavad-gītā is Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena. The word Abhyasa means practice. अभ्यासयोगयुक्तेन चेतसानान्यगामिना परमं पुरुषं दिव्यं याति पार्थानुचिन्तयन्. Abhyasa yoga, in practice of meditation. So we should practice. Every day we are chanting. That is a practice. Every day we are waking up among others. That is a practice. So we are practicing that on a daily basis. That is called sadhana. But of course, offenses have to be avoided. And then, yes. So that is, see, the mercy means not that there is no practice on my part. That is wrong understanding. Because, Prabhupada explained that, if somebody has fallen into a well and then he's saying, oh, please be merciful, please take me out. Then, somebody lets down a rope. And then he says, oh, please be merciful, please show mercy, please pick me up from this dark well. Are you catch hold of the rope now? So I have to do that effort of catching hold of the rope, and it's not easy. I may slip and fall again. I should hold on to it tightly. Then he can pull me out. He can pull me out, but provided I want to hold on to the rope. So, That is one example. Another example is Prabhupada said, the leader bird, he will fly, and all the flock of birds will follow him, but they have to keep flapping their wings because they cannot say that, oh, the leader bird is going, so we can just, like blindly, we just relax. No, they have to flap their own wings. So, mercy means he shows us the way. The Guru shows us the way. But we have to walk on that way. That is our practice. So, both should be there, mercy and then our practice, our sadhana. But we should practice according to the order of the spiritual master. That's what we should do. Krishna. Krishna. Caught a cold actually. Javanikachannam. Covered by the curtain of Maya. Krishna. That's a good question. Why do they have the rosary? Because the question earlier was, somebody said that Jesus did not ask people to chant. If that is the case, why they have the rosary? That's a good question. Somebody is asking, do you know Nam Nitai Das YouTube channel? I don't know. Swami, yes, Prabhu. Then he just said, I need to just accept Jesus in my heart as only Son of God. Accept means what? Accept the instructions. Not only Son. God is not important that we can only have one Son. He has unlimited sons. Every sarva yonishu kaunteya aham bija pradapita. Krishna says, I'm the father of everyone. To tell them, God is not important. He's important, not important. He was Protestant, they don't use rosary or follow anything. That's the problem. He's always protesting, that means. Desiring liberation from material world isn't good. So is it better to desire pure devotion right from the beginning of our Krishna consciousness and cultivate that? It's hard to desire when we suffer. Okay. Hard to desire when we suffer. So devotional service is, once one is in devotional service, one is already having liberation. Liberation is a minuscule atomic side effect of devotional service. So, devotional service can be performed in material or spiritual worlds. But when one is in devotional service, he is in the spiritual world. He does not feel the pangs of the material world at all. So, give an example. See, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, this was Brahmanando bhavedesha chetparardha gunikritah naiti bhakti sukhambodhe paramanutulamapi. If Brahmananda, the bliss of merging in the Brahman effulgence, were multiplied 100 trillion times, it would still not equal even an atomic fragment of the ocean of transcendental bliss felt in devotional service. So, devotional service is way more rewarding than liberation. Liberation is already included in devotional service. So, of course, Mama Janmani Janmanishware. For us, it's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is praying like that, but for us, it's like, oh, that is hellish. Janmani Janmanishwar. It's not hellish when one becomes a devotee. So, it's not the Janmani Janmanishwara or the Vaikuntha position that is important to focus on. We should focus on becoming a pure devotee of Krishna. Then the externals don't matter at all because this is how a devotee experiences even the material world. देहं च नश्वरमवस्थितमुत्थितं वा सिद्धो न पश्यति यतो ध्यगमत्स्वरूपम् दैवादपेतमथ दैववशादुपेतं वासो यथा परिकृतं मदिरामदन्धः. Just as a drunken man does not notice if he is wearing his coat or shirt, similarly, one who is perfect in self realization and who has thus achieved his eternal identity does not notice whether the temporary body is sitting or standing. Indeed, if by God's will the body is finished, or if by God's will he obtains a new body, a self realized soul does not notice, just as a drunken man does not notice the situation of his outward dress. Similarly, Chaitanya Chandramrita, Prabodhananda Saraswati, he said, Vishwam Purna Sukhayate. Devotees are free from all problems because they are fully surrendered under the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even for a devotee, everything in the world is very pleasing because he knows how to use everything in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. This is the important thing. So they are always enjoying. They don't find the material world as suffering. That is the power of devotional service. Of course, when once asked the question to Prabhupada, when disciple asked, should we, desire to go back to Godhead, or, to come life after life and serve the instruction of the spiritual master and Krishna? Prabhupada said, you go back. You have to go back. Coming back and all that, that is for, exalted devotees who are sent here to preach. But the rest of us, we should want to go back to Krishna and serve him. So, because we might be depressed at the thought of coming back. Although it is actually not depressing for a devotee to come back. Devale, yes, dialectic spiritualism is a good book. Prabhupada answers are like fire. I have to read that. I haven't read it. It's a really great book. The audio tape's also really nice. There is two lectures of every philosopher. That's nice. I wish there was some similar debate with some Christians, just like that Islam one. It was really in depth. Hmm. I don't know. Those debates would make really nice long form videos too. Yeah. Debate league. Yeah. BVA Gandharva Pariksha, exams in the air. What is that? Exams in the air? Thanks for giving the class with a cold. It said that Vabhishya Purana. Bhavishya Purana. Vabhishya, what is Vabhishya Purana? Maybe you said Bhavishya Purana. Maybe you meant Bhavishya. Srati Parva, chapter 20, describe Prabhupada's activity, but I could not find it. Do you know that particular verse? Prabhupada activity means he will go to the West and preach to them lectures. Well, I did not do all that. BVA Gandharva Pariksha, writing exam in the sky. Please start it. Oh, like Akasha Pushpa. Please start it, Rose, so that we take up the reading seriously. Well, I want to, but never mind. You start first reading. When I'm ready, I will take it up. We'll start sometime. I can't promise at this point. First, I want to make my videos schedule. I mean, videos upload constant, and then I can work on the other one. But it's an important thing, I know. But let's see. Hopefully, in this year, maybe I can start, or maybe next year. I don't know. Because there are a lot of moving parts at the moment now. Now also I have to go to India probably sometimes in the year, maybe twice a year or something like that, for preaching to us. And yeah, we'll see. But still, all services should go on. Um, it has to be. You can't just. If it was possible, I will definitely do it. Right? I'm not lazy. I'm not lazy in not doing it. It's just that I'm just occupied. Otherwise, it was me who started it. So I wouldn't be lazy in doing that because nobody asked me to do it. I wanted to do it. So you don't have to think that I'm just being lazy and not starting it. I'm not. I I have constraints. So I want to focus on certain areas of my service which I consider very important. I know this is also important. There has to be time. Okay. But just like I did not have a BVA program for myself, you don't actually need that to read. It is to give impetus for people to read, but it's not necessary for you to read properly. And I don't want it to become also a thing where people just become philosophically engaged, but practically not engaged in any service. I don't want that. We have to have practical engagement in service. In addition to that, there is a philosophical element. Okay. Okay, so I think I'll stop it here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Jai Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.